Hi, this is Philip Carr-Gomm. Welcome to Tea with the Druid 128, which is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. Do say you're here. There's 4 places you can be watching this. You might be on YouTube, you might be on Facebook, you might be on my Facebook page, or you might be on my YouTube page. So tell me you can see, tell me you can hear, and it's Maria, hello, and Kian, and Beth, and Daniel. B from North Carolina. Great. Cavell from Newfoundland. Lots of people piling in. That's great. Sandra from Gibraltar. Lovely. Vancouver, Alberta, Santa Monica. Hi. Germany, Tuscany, Totnes. We're all gathering in the circle together. That's just wonderful, and it's lovely to be with you. Good. So this is the last Tea with the Druid that I'm going to be doing for a while. I'm going to have a break, and then I'll be back later in the summer. But what I wanted to talk with you to get today, I know lots of you are still arriving, but I'm going to start talking because lots of people watch this on the recording. Today, with all the trouble in the States, the awful killing, and then the demonstrations that have arisen after that time, and just seeing this going on, really got me thinking about the Druid's prayer. Because for me, when I saw that film of that poor man being murdered in broad daylight by a policeman, the sense of outrage was one of this was of witnessing the violation of the cosmic, divine, natural principle of justice. The injustice in the cruelty of it and the brazenness of it was just appalling. And that's why the riots have broken out. The injustice is just intolerable. And there's a particular phrase in the Druid's prayer. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Druid's prayer, if I just explain to you that this was created a couple of hundred years ago, over 200 years ago, by Yula Morganwg, who was a founding father of the modern Druid revival. Very eccentric, colorful figure, controversial in many ways. And he created a number of versions of this prayer. And we don't know how far back in time, where this prayer comes from, whether he received it by kind of divine inspiration, whether he actually, in his travels around Wales, had picked up traces of ancient traditions and prayers. We don't know. But he created this prayer that has become part of the canon of the modern Druid tradition. And there's a line in it that goes, the knowledge of justice, in the knowledge of justice, the love of it. And because a lot of the very modern Druid renaissances came out of the counterculture from the 1960s and 70s onwards, I've encountered a lot of people, and sometimes perhaps myself, have reacted against that because it's evoked images of heavy-handed policing, of authoritarianism. But of course, that's not at all what it's referring to. It's referring to the application of justice in as a natural human right, something that the police do uphold, and that's their job, and it is their job to uphold the good police people. There's some wonderful policemen in the order. I've seen one of them is here with us this evening, and it's wonderful to have these policemen and women in the order, because I know what fine people they are. And that was the sort of double insult, I suppose, of watching that murder live on television, was it was being conducted by policemen. But so it's interesting that it should have the love of justice. And I'll tell you how the prayer goes, and it goes, grant, O God or Goddess, thy protection, and in protection, strength, and in strength, understanding, and in understanding, knowledge, and in knowledge, the knowledge of justice, and in the knowledge of justice, the love of it, and in the love of it, the love of all existences, and in the love of all existences, the love of goddess or God and all goodness. Now, when you see this prayer being said in a Druid ceremony, certainly within the order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, it can often seem very chaotic, because when we get to the bit, grant, O God, some people say God, some people say goddess, some people say God and goddess, some people say, oh, great spirit. Some people say, oh, gods, grant, O gods, thy protection. Some people even say, grant, O holy ones, thy protection. And so it's chaotic at the beginning. It can seem a shambles, but this chaos is good. I was embarrassed about it to begin with, you know, because one all likes an orderly, harmonious kind of recitation of a prayer. And there'd be always this moment of chaos where everybody's saying something sort of slightly different. But in fact, it's wonderful. It's one of our strengths, the strengths of Druidry, that there's no theology that we must all adopt. There are atheists who are Druids, there are theists, there are monotheists, duotheists, pantheists, panentheists, trans-igtheists, all kinds of theists and non-theists. So it's wonderful, actually, this chaos. And but what I feel at this time is that in researching this, I discovered that Iolo Morganwg, 200 years ago, refused a legacy from his brothers because it came out of money that came from their plantation and their keeping of slaves in Jamaica. So he refused it, and he had a little shop in Cowbridge in the Vale of Glamorgan. He had a sign up apparently saying, "The sugar I sell in this shop is not produced with slave labor." So he was in advance of his times. That's one of the great features of Druidry, actually, is that there was a lot of truly wonderful, generous, radical thought within the Druid tradition. Professor Ronald Hutton is great in talking about this when he talks about Druid history. So, and in addition to this love of justice that Druids have, they also have a love of peace. There are these famous stories how in ancient times the Druids would walk through warring factions, competing factions, and would calm either side. They would, there's a phrase that they use in classical literature, the Druids would shame Mars before the Muses. So in other words, Mars, that martial spirit, they would shame that and say, no, 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 calm down, folks. And so the Druid loves justice and loves peace too. And of course, Celtic law in the ancient times, looking at Brehon law, which is derived from the ancient Irish law, derived from the time of the ancient Druids, used a concept called restorative justice, where the idea of justice was not to punish for the sake of punishment, to mete out an eye and an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but actually to restore harmony, to restore the pattern. So, for instance, if you had injured somebody, your job was to make sure that they were healed and made better, and so on. And restorative justice, there's a whole interesting area that you can go into in studying that. And the Maori tradition in New Zealand has worked with restorative justice too. And so restorative justice programs in New Zealand and in Canada, I believe, have been successful. And so, and somebody's saying here, very good point, Sarah Heller, what happens when justice and peace conflict? Well, this is the thing. I think we tend to think of peace as a kind of passive quality, peaceniks as passive people. But when you get to the heart of peace, it's powerful. I always like, you know, when you look at a big, big oak tree, in some of the Druid prayers we use, we talk about it being, we salute this being of the oak tree as a being of peace and of power. Though you are mighty, you harm no creature. So the tree is massive, but it doesn't harm anybody. And so that's the challenge. That's the challenge. In any situation of abuse, it's like, how can I stand tall, resist injustice, fight for justice, but not to harm other people and to hurt other people? Because of course the tendency is to fight back. Very hard, and I'm not saying it's an easy path at all, but that's the challenge. And so the end of every Druid ceremony, as well as calling for the love of justice, we give, or rather at the beginning of every Druid ceremony, we give peace, what's called peace to the quarters. And somebody goes to north, south, east, and west, and everybody in the circle sends peace to the east, peace to the north, peace to the south, peace to the west. And then we all stand together in one circle and say, may there be peace throughout the whole world. So for those of you who are in the heart of this, and I can see that there are, just looking at the comments, right in the heart of the conflict and the difficulties that are going on in the States, we're thinking of you. And if a spiritual way can help, one of the ways it can do that is by giving us just a few moments where we can anchor ourselves in calm and in peace, not to be in denial, not to withdraw from the fight for justice, not to hide away, but actually to find the resources deep within us, to connect with the divine source that brings us energy and strength with which to live another day and with which to fight for what we believe is right. And so let's do that now, just for a few minutes, as we always do in these Tea with the Druid sessions. And you're welcome to join in with this, or if this is new for you, you're welcome just to watch this and see how you feel, and maybe do it later if you want to. But let's just go deep inside now. And there's a way in which one can maintain a sense of presence and awareness of being seated in front of our computers and tablets, but at the same time, allowing ourselves to take in a breath and then breathe out fully and deeply. And you may even want to shake off some of the stress and the tension of the day. As you breathe in, hold your breath and then breathe out. And then, having shaken off some of the tension, you might like to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself and to become aware of entering a sacred space, the sacred grove of the Druids, which is a clearing in the forest. The birds are singing in the trees. The trees are standing tall. And you come into the clearing and you sit down and you place your hands on the earth. And in doing that, by placing your hands on the earth, it gives you a sense of grounding and stability. And you breathe out, and as you breathe out, all your tensions just drift into the earth. And as you breathe in the energy of the earth, which you sense is flowing up into your being. You sense all the life in the earth. All that energy and life in the earth, the creatures, the soil, the water. And this subtle energy of the earth flows into you. And you become aware of the trees anchored in the earth. You sense their roots drawing up the moisture. You sense them as beings of peace and of power, of true protection and strength. And we give thanks to the trees for their protection, for their blessings, for standing guardians around us. And we become aware of the energy of the sky. the sky above us. And we breathe in the energy and the vitality of the sky. And as we do this, the energy of the sky flows into us, and it meets the energy of the earth within the center of our beings. And feeling calm and at peace within this circle, we gradually allow our awareness of others of like mind and heart seated in the circle too. And we might perhaps open our inner eyes to see seated around in a circle as in a Druid ceremony, people of every color and gender, race and creed, and of every age too, young and old. And we look around and we look into their eyes and we see their faces, the faces of the young and old. And we sense this connection and this unity. And we allow our hands to stretch out to either side of us, and we take the hand of the person to either side of us, so we are all connected in one circle. And together we say the Druid's prayer. Grant, O God, O Goddess, O Great Spirit, thy protection. And in protection, strength. And in strength, understanding. And in understanding, knowledge. And in knowledge, the knowledge of justice. And in the knowledge of justice, the love of it. And in the love of it, the love of all existences. And in the love of all existences, the love of God and Goddess, of Great Spirit, and all goodness. And we swear by peace and love to stand, heart to heart and hand in hand. Mark, O Spirit, and hear us now, confirming this, our sacred vow. And we sense ourselves standing up now, and we look around again and we see all our brothers and sisters around us holding hands together in this circle. And we say again, we swear by peace and love to stand, heart to heart and hand in hand. Mark, O Spirit, and hear us now, confirming this, our sacred vow. Gently we let the hand to either side of us go as we move our hands up to our hearts so that both of our palms are on our hearts, and we bow to each other in greeting, in love and blessing to each one in the circle. And then slowly we allow our awareness of standing in the sacred grove, of standing with our brothers and sisters together. We allow this awareness to fade as we say these words of one of the Druid ceremonies. As this ceremony ends, may its inspiration continue within our beings. May our memories hold what the eye and ear have gained. And the scene fades from your awareness as you become aware of being seated here in front of your screen. knowing that you can return to the sacred grove of the Druids at any time for comfort, for support, for a feeling of solidarity, feeling of connection. Well, thank you for being here. It's lovely reading your quotes, what you're saying. I want to bring all our African American brothers and sisters into the safety of our grove. Yes, indeed. Okay, thank you. Well, you know, Tea with a Druid is always short. It's deliberately short for all sorts of reasons. And I just want to say that I'm going to have a break now, as you may or may not know. I'm handing over after 32 years. I'm retiring as Chief of the Order on Saturday. I'm handing over the role to my successor, Ema Burke. On Friday evening, on these same channels live, same time, 8 p.m. UK time, I'm going to give my farewell address. I'm going to give the last speech that I will give as the Chief of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. So if you happen to be around 8 o'clock in the evening on Friday, that will be lovely to see you. But it'll be in a similar way to this. It's recorded, so you can watch it later if it's not a convenient time for you. And at the end of my speech, I will light a candle, chant 3 Arwens, and send all my blessings to my successor, Ema, who's across the Irish Sea in Ireland. And it'll be your chance to then, light your candles, send your blessings, send any messages to Ema on the thread and all the rest of it. And then we'll allow 24 hours for those blessings to build and roll around the earth to arrive in Kilkenny in Ireland. And then on Saturday, again, the same time, 8 p.m., we'll have the ceremony of installation. And when I actually that'll be the moment when I actually hand it over. And then I'm going to have a break. I'm going to retire into the forest for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I'm not sure. But Ema will be taking the tea with the Druid and other guests too. And then at some time later in the summer, I'll come back. And I just wanted to say, if you're new here and you like the short meditations, but you want longer meditations, there's a home retreat program that is free and that I've created, and I'll post it up now. And you go there, and there's a meditation, longer meditations, which are pre-recorded, so you can download them and listen to them, and little films and inspiring poems and teachings and so on. So many blessings, lots of love. I shall miss you. Not doing these teas for a while, but I will be back. So, and I'll see maybe some of you on Friday. Okay, bye. And I'm going to make a cup of tea now, and I'm going to read your comments. Okay, lots of love. Bye.